What's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to be showing you how you can make this attack. As per usual, this attack and actually the staff glow, which is what we made in the last video, are available on my Patreon. Everything required to make the attack will be available in the description of the video. So like the images and stuff like that will be available. But if you just want to export the attack itself and just have it available immediately to use in your game, you can download it on my Patreon. There's only one tier. It's $5. And yeah, also make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel and follow my Instagram and follow my Twitter and join my Discord. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and delete the minion attack that we already have, and I'm going to go ahead and start this all the way over. Now, this is going to be an actual miracle if I remember how to make this. So let's go ahead and we're going to right click on the left here. We're going to click Effects, Particle System, and we're going to call this Minion Attack. So let's double click on this so you can see what it looks like. So this is the default particle system. You can see that the particles are just floating upwards towards the sky. Now we don't want that. We want a burst of particles that goes to the right and then hits the wall. On the right here, you can see that the x-axis is set to -90. Just change it to 0 and then change the y to 90 so that it's facing to the right. So then we don't want it to be a rate over time. We want to just change this to 0, and then we want to burst. We're going to make this a burst of 500 particles. In order to encapsulate this, let's just change this max particles to 5,000 for right now. If you press restart now, you should just get this burst of particles. So it's halfway clipping into the ground. So we're just going to move this up so it's not clipped into the ground anymore. You can see that you're getting this cone effect where this is the output of a cone, which is the shape that the particle system is in. So we're just going to change this to 5 so that they're closer together. But this isn't actually how we want this to be at all. So we're going to change the duration to 10, and we're going to change the start lifetime to a random between two constants. So between 5 and 8 should be good. And the start speed should be way faster. We want this to go flying at the wall. So we want this to become a random between two constants. We're going to do between 200 and 250. Wow, awesome. We're pretty much done, guys. Just kidding. We're not almost done. But anyway, so we're going to change the start size to a random between two constants. So we're going to be doing maybe like 10 and 25. So now that we have the base attack of how this is working, now we need to make a material for the attack so it actually looks like something that's not just the default particle. So if you right click at the bottom of your project, you can click create material, and then you want to go into the shader of the material in the drop down, choose particles and choose standard unlit. And remember, the difference between unlit and lit is affected by lighting and unlit is not affected by lighting. So if the particles are emitting light, you don't want them to be affected by light. Okay, so we're going to be dragging this minion smoke texture sheet. It's a flip book onto the square box beside the albedo or whatever it is. And then you just want to turn on flip book frame blending because it's a flip book. At the top where it says rendering mode, we're going to change this to transparent. And then in the bottom one, we're going to change it to overlay. If you've done this correctly, if you run this again, you should have, oh, sorry, you got to drag this into the material slot. So I already did that off camera, but you got to drag this into the material slot. And then if you press play, you should get like this kind of blob of smoke textures that are just flying towards the right side. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set the start rotation. So if you click to this little drop down beside the start rotation, you could change it to a random between two constants. We're going to change it between -360 and 360 degrees. This will make it so all the smoke textures are rotated in a random direction so they don't all look like they're the same. So you see how this turns it into like a circle kind of look instead of the way that it was. And then we want to turn on this node called size by speed. Okay, so what we want to do is the speed range needs to match this start speed that's up here, okay, because we don't have anything else affecting the speed at all. It should be 200 to 250. So if we set this 200 to 250 and then we click on this, this is the speed. So basically over the lifetime, the higher the speed, the bigger it will be. So the ones that are at the front will be bigger and the ones that are at the back will be smaller. So let's run this again. I don't know if you can see it, but at the back, there's a clear difference. Like, let me just pause it. Hang on, let me hit restart and I'll pause it. These ones at the back are smaller and the ones at the front are bigger. It's not really as noticeable as it could be. I don't remember if I used 200 to 250 in my main one. Let me just drag my real one back onto the scene. Okay, so in my real one, I did 200 to 300. So that's what we're going to do as well. So change the start speed from 200 to 300 for this. And then in this as well, it also needs to be 200 to 300. So if you restart this, you can see that the front is like bigger and the back is smaller. This really adds a lot to the way way that it looks. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do here is on the left where you have your minion attack. What we're going to do is we're going to copy this. So just right click and press copy, and then we're going to paste it as a child. Now, the first thing you need to do when you do this is get rid of the rotation on the y-axis, because if you rotate it because it's going to be inheriting because it's a child. So if it inherits the y-axis, then it will be going up and down instead of going to the right where this one is. So this is going to be our second one. So the first one that we made is kind of like the smoke outline for the attack, but now we're going to have a particle that's in the middle of it, which is going to be the bright particle, which is another thing that I'm going to be uploading a copy of to the video. But you need to create another material at the bottom here, and you can call this bright particle material. We need to find the bright particle. Again, this will be part of the description of the video. If you just drag this bright particle, you can put it to the left of the base map. We're again going to be changing this. It's not going to be the universal run pipeline. We're going to be using a legacy shader. So if you click on this at the very bottom, you can click legacy shaders, and you're going to want to click particles and then additive. So yeah, so after you've done that, you should have a material that looks like this, and then you can go into your minion attack. And we just want to drag this bright particle over top of the minion smoke particle in your child one. So let's click play on this again and see what it looks like. Our minion attack is we didn't reset the transform, so you just need to change the X to 0 and the Y to 0 and the Z to 0. And then if you press restart, it's not really visible. Let me just zoom out. Okay, so we want this particle to be visible over top of the cloud particle because this one is more important than the other one. So we really want this one to be on top. So we're just going to make this the order and layer. It doesn't need to be that high for your game. It's just has to be high for my game because my game I have a lot of other objects and a lot of them will go. This should be over top of everything else in the game. So this is looking really good. This is too big. So let's just change this back to 50. And let me go into my minion attack and I'm just going to see how big it is there. So we've got 5 to 15 there. So let's go back to this one, and the 5 to 15 is the size. Okay, so it looks like I set this up wrong. So in the minion attack and this one below it, if you shift click, you can actually edit both of them at the same time. We're just going to change the lifetime to only 3 seconds. It actually goes a lot faster. Just restart this. Okay, so then the other thing is that in size by speed, this graph is wrong. So at the top of this, you can actually change this total, like this graph size, to make it larger, right? Because maybe you want it to grow significantly more. Like maybe you don't want it to just be 1 times bigger. Maybe you want it to be like 3 times bigger in this case. And then we're going to move this bottom key up to 0.5, which is actually 1.5. And if you tilt this, you can make it more of a straight line, so it's more smooth, and it doesn't really matter, I guess. And we're just going to take this one down to like this, maybe. Ooh, it still doesn't really look the same. Let me just look through this again. So I think I turned that off. I don't think that really matters though. Oh, the emission is wrong. So change the emission to 1000. The other one has 1000. And the shape is wrong. Instead of having an angle of 5, just change this to 1. That way they're closer together. Okay, so I did some referencing with the other one because, like I said, I can't remember exactly what I did to make this work, and I'm trying to make it as close to the other one as possible. So I changed the start color to be like a bluey color. You just copy the numbers if you want. In the emission, I changed it to 1500 instead. I think I had it up 500. I just changed it to 1500. Remember, this is for the cloud one, right? Okay, so this isn't for the bright particle. This is for the cloud. So I changed the emission to 1500 particles. I changed the size by speed. So if you look at the graph at the bottom here, it's between around 0.8 and below 2. Maybe it should go a little bit higher, closer to 2. Let's just press play again. And you might want to copy these settings for the material. So like at the bottom, if you click render, you can click on the material and there's like these settings. You can copy them if you want. You could even maybe add a little bit of emission if you want to. I think that adds too much glow to the scene though. And I think maybe in my final copy, I'll probably have to do something about that as well. I think even this finished one, there's a lot of extra, let me just pause this. There's a lot of like extra blue glow that's around it. And when you're playing, that might be too much. Even though it looks like this looks really cool, but I might have to somehow get rid of, like, I'll go into my global volume settings and do that. I'm not going to do that as part of this video. Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty cool. And I guess in my game, it doesn't really look that sub-emitty, but yeah, you have to be careful. If you do too much emission, it will be like overpowering and everything kind of lights up in your entire room or whatever. Also, just make sure you add this texture sheet animation. I can't remember if I put that on the video yet or not, but you could just copy these settings. It's 2x2, and I changed the cycles to 0 because I don't want it to cycle through as it's going. I just wanted to use a random cloud. I don't even know if that works. It might just be using the top left one, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. So now we want to add collisions. So click on collisions, and we want to change this to world. So we only want this for the top one. This, okay. Anyway, we want to just change dampen to 1 and lifetime loss to 1, and we're going to turn bouncing off. We want this to disappear when it hits the wall. We don't want it to bounce everywhere. I mean, that's kind of cool too for other effects, but for our effect, we're not doing that. We're just going to be doing it disappears when it hits the wall, and it's going to spawn something else. Make sure you check this send collision messages. This is how you will detect if your attack hits something. So like if you hit an enemy, or like if this is an enemy, you could detect if you hit your player, right? And then we need to turn on sub-emitters as well. So this is where we're going to set up the explosion that happens when it hits the wall. So we want to put this on either death or collision. Let me just check my other one, what I did. Hang on. Yeah, I did it on collision. Okay, so set this up to collision. Okay, so now we need to make the attack explosion. So if we right click on our minion attack parent on the left, we can click create new particle system, and we're just going to call this minion attack explosion. Perfect. So inside of this, we're going to have to change all the settings again. So on the right here, we're going to change the lifetime to a random between 2 constants. And this is going to be really low because each particle that hits the wall is going to be spawning this, right? So each thing, like each part of this attack, when it hits the wall, it's going to be spawning this attack explosion. So we don't want this to be very long, or else it'll be like huge. It'll be massive, right? So we don't really want that. So the start speed can be between 3 and 120. The start size can be between 1 and 25. Start rotation is the same thing, where we're doing negative 360 to 360. Start color doesn't matter because we're going to use a shader for this. So this is not going to, like, this won't affect the actual color of it. It's going to be a shader, so I'm going to be showing you that. This is probably going to be the most difficult part of this kind of thing, and we're just going to turn up the maximum particles to 5,000. And then inside the emission, we only want this. Okay, so we don't want to rate over time. We want only 3 particles, and we don't want this to be looping either. So at the top, turn off looping. And then the shape, instead of having a cone, we want a sphere, so it goes all around, like it's an explosion, right? So it should be all around this little area, right? Okay, so then back on the left, if you click on the parent, which is this minion attack, this is the one that is like the cloud, right? So we're going to click on sub-emitters again, and where it says none particle system, what we need to do is just drag this minion attack explosion into this slot. So now when it hits the wall, it should... Okay, so we need to change what this collides with, because it's hitting the ground in my game, and that's what's causing it to do that. So where it says collides with, we're just going to change this to nothing, and then to default. Now make sure that if, because nothing will uncheck everything else, but make sure that you have the layers that you want to be able to be hit by this selected. So like when it hits, only certain objects should be like hit by this. The ground is not included in that. You don't want it hitting the ground or whatever. So this looks pretty cool. Now the actual explosion will be over top of this, so it shouldn't look like this where it like goes into the door and then disappears afterwards. So let's just press play one more time. Okay, so this is looking pretty awesome, but we need to create the material now. So in the bottom of this, if we right click, we can create a shader graph, and it's going to be a lit shader graph. Okay, and we're going to call this a minion explosion shader. And then also at the bottom, if we right click again, we can create a material and call this minion explosion material. And then in the material at the top right where it says lit, anyway, in the material at the top right where it says lit, you can type in explosion, and you should be able to select the shader that you just made. So in order to make different parts of the smoke a different color, so let me just double click on this so I can explain what we're doing before we try to do it. So this is the regular smoke, right? But we want the explosion to be, the middle of the particle is going to be really bright, but then and the outside is going to be darker. So like we want different colors on these than what they currently are. So we want the middle to be bright and the outside to be darker so that it looks more like a cartoony like explosion. This is how you can do this for pretty much every type of particle. You're going to want to like kind of memorize this because it's pretty important. Use this on all my particles and everything that I've done so far. So all right, so at the bottom where you've created the shader, if you double click on it, it will open the shader graph and it looks like this. So what we want to do is we want to put this minion smoke into this. So if you just drag and drop it, it will just go right in just like that. And then in the graph settings on the left, if you don't see this, you can click graph inspector in the top right. That turns on and off these little things that popped up or whatever, right? And there's this thing that says opaque, and we just want to turn that to transparent. And then we don't want to cast and receive shadows. I think that's it for that. So we can hide the graph inspector. Now in this, it's very similar to the visual effect graph where you can right click and create a node. We're going to create a flipbook node, and remember our flipbook is 2 by 2, and we're just going to drag this to the UV. Now you can see when you do this, it cuts it into 1/4 of the UV, which is fine. And then we want to right click at the top here and create a gradient, and then you could drag this gradient, which can only go into a sample gradient. And then we can drag the alpha from this into the time node, and then this can go into the base color, whereas this goes into the alpha at the bottom, because this will preserve the shape of the object. So these little black parts, they're going to be invisible, right? Because we want the black parts to stay invisible. But if you try to put the gradient into this, the white is not invisible. So when you use alpha, the dark parts are invisible and the white parts are visible. So it will look like this, except for the white parts are going to be not visible. So what we want to do is we want to change this. So we're going to put blue as the outline for now. And I'm probably gonna have to look at my other gradient to see what I did. So let me do that. Yeah, so I've got blue, and then I think this is like a lighter blue with some intensity. And then this is like straight up, just like almost white with 6 intensity. That's really high. So let's do that. So this is a lighter blue like this, and it has some intensity to it. So like 3 maybe. And then this is like this, but it's like closer to 6. And again, you don't want to go too crazy with this because it will light up your entire scene and make everything weird looking. So let me just go back to the scene for a sec, and we're going to save this. And we really want to test this while we're doing this so you can see the difference. So if we click play on this, we can click pause as it blows up. So right now we haven't even applied the material yet. So what we want to do is in the particle system on the right, we can go to the renderer and we can drag this minion explosion material that we just made here. So then you can kind of see what it looks like. Let's play it again so it's not... Okay. So this isn't looking the way that we want yet. So we want to just change this so that it looks more the way that we want. So let's just turn this down. This is obviously way too bright. And we'll turn this down a little bit as well. And let's hit save, and you can see the difference in real time. So this isn't looking like the other one at all. Okay, so the first thing I noticed is that when I change this, there's these little boxes around these particles. Now you're probably gonna run into this and you're gonna probably come back to this video because you're gonna forget this. There's this preserve specular lighting option here. If you turn this off and save it, it will get rid of that. If you don't do that, those little boxes are gonna be there, okay? So that will fix that problem. And then I'm just gonna kind of copy more closely my gradient because I spent a lot of time perfecting this. So this one is at like 38%, I think. Let me just go back to my other one, and I'm going to click between the two and just make them the exact same. So this is 38.8%. So this one should be 38.8. And then this one is 513, 191, 513, 191 still. Okay. And it's like 3.0 something. We're just going to leave it at 3. That's probably okay. And then this still doesn't really look exactly the same. Let's see where the other one is. So this one's at 74.7. So let's move this one to 74.7. Oops. Okay, I highlighted it and it doesn't update anymore. Cool. 74.7. And then what's the 73, 114, 191? 73, 114, 191, right? Yeah. This one 73 114 191 is on the exact dot, and then this is all the way up to 6 on this one. Yeah, 6.099. So we'll change this to Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the same thing. Okay, let's see how it looks now. Okay, so it's still not really looking like the other one does. So let me just hit restart. Okay, so it looks a lot better than it looked. So it needs to show over top. Okay, so this explosion should be appearing over top of everything. So on the right in the particle system for the explosion, change the order and layer. I'm going to put 50 because I have a lot of stuff in my game. So in order for it to actually be above everything, it has to be pretty high. So I don't think this will be a shader problem anymore. Okay, what does my other one look like? Hang on, let me just restart this. It's a lot darker blue, and it looks like there's like little flamies in the middle. It looks a lot better. This looks too bright and it's kind of overpowering. Okay, so there's a few more things I found that are required to make this work. So this has like dark blue going up to here. I don't know why it wasn't like that. So if you click on this first key, just copy these numbers. You might have to delete this key and re-add it, or add another key closer to this to make this blue like this. I don't know. I just deleted it and re-added it and it did correctly. But the first time it was like white all the way to there for some reason. Then the next thing you need to do is in the graph inspector for the explosion shader, the depth test needs to be set to always. What this will do is it will always draw it over top of everything else. And this is what makes the particles appear on top of each other and gives it that cool effect. So that's required. And then there's a few other things I changed. So on the left here where you have minion attack, we didn't set collisions for this. So we only set it for this one. So these get destroyed when they hit the wall, but these are not getting destroyed. And that's why it kind of looks weird too as well. So what we need to do is add collisions to this one as well. And this one doesn't have to spawn anything, but we still want it to collide with the same thing. So collides with the world, the default for me, because we only want it hitting the wall for now. It's also going to collide with my player. So everything you select here will work. So I'll choose player, so default and player for this. And then one of these is also going to have a script on it to detect the collisions. We don't want to send collision messages for this one. It's not required, right? We just want this one to be disappearing when it hits the wall. So instead of bounce, we're going to turn off bounce. We're going to turn dampen to 1 and lifetime loss to 1. So the reason that the end part doesn't look as good is because this is additive. So when it hits the wall, it's like that's why it's so bright and you can't see any of the detail. So let me just restart this. So we're getting a little bit better detail now. It's still not what I want. So let me just go to collisions for a sec. Okay, so there's a few more things that I did wrong. This took me a really long time to figure out. So first of all, rate over time is set on the explosion. So change this to 100. But then inside of the renderer, there's this custom vertex streams, which is set, right? So this is showing like this because the normal is set in the custom vertex streams. If you delete the normal just by clicking the minus button, it will fix it so it looks like the other one. Yeah, and just make sure that the order and layer is correct. So the top one is 5, and then this middle one is 15, and the explosion is 16 because you want the explosion to be on top. So like it's kind of sequential. So which one shows up first? But yeah, so that's pretty much it for that. And I've written a script that actually damages enemies in my game. Now you're welcome to copy it if you want. Okay, so you drag this script onto the main particle system, right? You only want this attached to one of them. Let me open the script so I can show you what it is. Okay, so we're getting some information. So this is the particle system that it's attached to. Make sure you've turned on collision events. So inside of your particle system under collisions, there's this send collision messages. If you don't turn this on, this will not work. You won't be able to see any of the collision information. And this is actually kind of a laggy because there's so many particles and there's messages for each one of them. This is actually kind of laggy. So you might be better off attaching a collider to the actual attack itself instead of all of the individual particles. I'm just going to be doing this for right now, but to show you how it would work. But the correct thing to do would be to attach a collider, like a box collider or a sphere collider onto the attack. And then on collision, enter with that collider because there's only one particle. Sending messages for 5,000 particles or 1,500 particles is a lot. It's going to lag the game, but this is how you would do it if you wanted to do it this way. I'm going to be replacing this with the other way that I was just saying, because one collider will be significantly better performance than doing it this way. But this is how you do it with collider. So if you had like a particle system where they were going in multiple directions and it wasn't like all one ball, then it would make more sense to use this. But since it's only one ball, you're going to want to put a sphere glider around it and do it the correct way. But yeah, so basically we're taking in this information. This doesn't actually have to be public because this particle system doesn't have to be public because we're getting the particle system it's attached to anyway. Collision events also doesn't need to be public because this is just a new list of collision events. And then on the collision enter, we're playing this sound if it's a minion attack. This particle system that I'm using is reused a lot of times. So I've used this in a bunch of things. So this is a minion attack that we're using. So if it contains this, we're going to play this audio clip. You're not going to have this audio clip. I'm not doing audio in this video. It's already too long, so I'm not going to be doing that, but you can look up a Brackeys video or something on how to make audio. You can get the collision events here. So for me, if it collides with Stickman Wizard, which is my player, and my player's not invincible, which is part of my static class. So I have a player static class that has all the settings for my player inside of it, and player invincibility is one of those things. We're going to set the invincibility to true because you don't want to be able to hit, like, there's a bunch of particles, and if you hit him like 1,500 times at the same time, he'll die instantly, right? So he gets invincible, and then I'm getting the intersection of the particle and the player so that it can tell which direction to push the player, and I'm passing that as a variable into the static method that's part of my object interaction class. And I probably lost everyone already, but this is just the way that I have the code set up. I know that some people will be interested in this. So I'm going to be checking if I have any special hearts. So I have special effects that happen with the death heart and the fire heart. I have videos on both of these on how to make them. So I will link that at the end of the video and you can go watch that if you want to. Especially the death heart is really cool. It makes souls come out of the character and they go flying off into the player. And then the last thing that it can do is it subtracts 0.5 from the health. If the player's health is still above 0 after it subtracts 0.5 health, it plays the player hit sound, which is just me saying ow, by the way. And then I have another static. So this waits a certain period of time and then puts my character back to uninvincible. And then I have a static class that pushes my character back from the amount of my player object knockback. Now, this is getting too far into a tangent. I did cover this in my, hang on, let me just erase this. I did cover this in my video, how to make a game like The Binding of Isaac for absolute beginners. So this is pretty complicated. It basically adds a list because I'm using a player controller and not a rigid body. I can't just push my character back. He doesn't have a rigid body attached to him. So he has a character controller attached to him. So this will move the character backwards as if he got hit. So you can copy this code if you want to, but like I said, I made a video called how to make a game like The Binding of Isaac. It'd be better if you watched that video where I actually explain how this is working. I probably shouldn't have even opened the code. That's probably too confusing. But anyway, yeah, this is the attack. I think this looks really, really awesome. And I didn't show you how I'm calling this. So my character has an animation, attack 1, right? So in the animator, he only has one state. It's attack and nothing right now. This is going to be walking or his default state or whatever, right? But he has this attack, and I maximized this by accident. So inside of the attack, if you double click on the animation, you can open this up and you can add what's called an event. So if you click this button right here, it will create an event, and you can put this somewhere in the animation. So this is him swinging right here, and this is where he releases the attack. So this is where the attack actually happens. This is the best way to do this, by the way. And then I'm going to open my Minion Man script so you can see what happens. So the name of the function that happens at this time is attack. So if you go into my Minion Man script, right now when I press L, because this is just a temporary, I'm just testing him out. I'm testing the animations and this attack for this video. This method happens at this event, right? So this event we call the function attack. This attack happens specifically at this part of the animation. So what happens is when I press L, it just plays this animation, which is an animator right here, right? It's called attack. And when it plays this animation partway through at the event, this happens. So it plays this sound of me making noise, which is I just made a noise into the mic, right? And then I'm changing the pitch of it to be between 0.8 and 2 so that it sounds different every single time he swings. And then it plays the clip once and it instantiates the attack. and the attack is already moving as part of the thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is, I guess the last little bit of it is going to be really confusing, but most people will just be here for the effect anyway. Like I said, this is available on my Patreon. So if you want, I think I have like a $5 subscription tier. So you could get this and all my other effects that I've been making on my Patreon. A lot of them are posted for free. So if you go through my previous videos, you can find them there as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope I'll see you in the next one.